Hello, hello. Can we hear each other? Do you hear me? Can you hear me, please? Hello.
Hello.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Nice to see you. I just found out that the Zoom link in the email and the reminder email was not working correctly. I don't know why, because I copied the invitation, so I had to send it again one more time. There should be 4 people coming in, or at least, well, 27 received the invitation. We will wait a couple of seconds and we will see who is coming. Okay, Marina should be here. We'll see who is coming. I don't know what happened to the Zoom meeting. You didn't have a problem to enter the Zoom meeting? It just the link was working for you correctly? Because then I double checked and it wasn't working. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it took some time for me. I needed to download something and then I entered the link and nothing happened. Then I tried again and then I used the ID and finally it worked. So I'm here. I don't know how, but I am.
Great. I cannot see all the people that are over here. I don't know where to see that. Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay. Great. So we'll wait maybe 2 more minutes and then we'll try to start. So just tell me at the beginning, do you know something about Hildegard von Bingen? Do you know her?
Sorry, I'll be changing my baby's diaper also, so I'll mute and I will switch off for a while.
It's okay, no problem. I don't have a problem with that. Well, then I guess something went wrong, technically. Oh, I didn't, I was not checking this. Okay, never mind. So we can wait 2 more minutes and then we can start. I will share. Here's the whiteboard. This is an interesting thing. Are you all there or not? So I prepared a presentation for you today. So we go step by step and I don't forget things. Can we start? Can anyone talk to me, please? Nobody is talking to me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
That's great. Great. Thank you for talking to me because I feel like, okay, never mind. Okay. So, I'm going to talk today about about Hildegard von Bingen. And Susanna, hello. Yeah, and let me first introduce myself. My name is Petra Stramko, and I have been with Hildegard von Bingen more than 16 years. Since I was a child, my grandfather was a doctor and was using healing plants, and that's why I'm so tempted towards the healing plants and healing remedies. And we will talk about why Hildegard von Bingen. But let me tell you, I do have 2 certificates from Hildegard von Bingen studies. One was done in Austria and the other one was done in Germany. So I'm certified basically to kind of talk about her works. And before we start, I want to make you or introduce to you a big picture where she lived and how she lived. During the medieval times, the reading and writing was really designated to the top class of the society. And she was an abbess. She was born in a rich family, and she received the education in a monastery where monks usually were writing books. And you have to imagine that at that time, at Hildegard time, it's basically 12th century, yeah, 12th, 13th century. She was living in a very simple environment, and she never really learned perfect Latin. Even though she was taught by monks, she was a nun, and the monks were not paying that much attention to nuns as compared to the education of the monks. And you have to understand at that time, writing a book was a really big thing. Books were very expensive. They were really beautifully written, decorated, very expensive, like 30,000 euros today. Imagine paying that for a book. At that time, for a female, it was very difficult to get education. She had to be in an upper class, and also a man could do just a career as a priest or as a bishop or as an abbess. So females in rich families at that time had two options: either to go to the monastery to learn how to read and write and to learn how to play an instrument, and either they stayed and they were nuns for the rest of their lives, or they got married during the time. And let me tell you just very briefly about Hildegard so you know her background and you understand why we'll be talking about the healing foods according to Hildegard von Bingen in a very special way that you won't find any place else in any books. Hildegard was born in she was a 10th child. She was born in 1098 to the family of Hildebert von Bennersheim. And since she was a little child, she was very weak, and she learned to walk very late, was very sick very often, and had these life visions since her childhood. When she was 8, she was basically put in a monastery, and I would say, a nun that was leading her was Jutta von Sponheim. And when Jutta died in 1136, Hildegard was appointed abbess of the monastery, and she was leading basically the females part of the monastery. And it was interesting, in the year 1141, she wrote about herself the following: "When I was 42 years old and 7 months old, a burning light coming from heaven poured into my whole mind, my whole heart, and my whole breast. It didn't burn, rather enkindled, just as the sun warms everything with its rays. And suddenly I understood the meaning of books, psalters, the Gospels, and other Catholic volumes, both from the Old and the New Testament." This is what she wrote about herself, because historically you can see that she wrote about her visions. And that was this small chapter down here. This is the part that she wrote about herself. So she basically said that she received a command to write down everything she heard from the heaven. And she said, "I see the things in my soul with open eyes and perceive all things in my conscious state during day and also night. Everything I see and hear, I remember for a long time. In the lively light, I'm deprived of all my sadness, anxiety, so I feel like a young girl and not as an old woman." So this is very special about Hildegard, that she was writing everything that she heard from we could say from heaven. It's interesting that she learned Latin, but she was not really able to write in the correct Latin. That's why she had a monk, Volmar, that was coming over to the monastery and that was writing down all her works, all her written works. And the first book she wrote was Physica. And Volmar always called Hildegard the trumpet of God. She died on the 17th September 1179. And when she died, it was interesting that it's written in the books, there was a huge cross above the place she died. The cross was red, and it was there the whole time, the whole day. And you have to really imagine she died and she was 81 years old. What's for medieval times very, very unusual. Because during the medieval times, since it was very harsh living in those conditions, it was cold, they didn't have enough food. So people were not living really a long and productive life. And Hildegard, despite the fact that she was very sick and she was becoming sick during her life a lot of times, she made it, and she was 81 years old when she died. It's incredible for me, the Hildegard. So we will talk a little bit about her books that she wrote. The books here is the one is called Physica. The other book is called Causa and Curae. And there are other books, it's called Liber Vitae Meritorum, Liber Divinorum Operum. We will talk today primarily about the book Physica, because the Physica book includes a lot. She writes there about stones, about metals, about plants, about trees, about healing food. She writes there about more or less the living stuff, also reptiles, also other animals. What's interesting about her, the last fact, is that she composed 77 songs, and you can write her, well, you can find her in YouTube. It's called Canticles of Ecstasy. It's a CD with a special music she wrote. It's a very, I would say, it's a very different music. Also, when you go to church regularly, this music is completely different. So if you are interested, you just, type in YouTube and find one of her songs. Some of them are really spectacular. But let us go to the fact, why is Hildegard contemporary? As I was going through my, I would say, career of collecting healing plants and learning, I came across this, I would say, crossroad where you take two books from two authors and they talk about healing plants or whatever healing it is. And you can pick one plant, like, let's say, nettle. Nettle is a very common plant that everybody knows. And in one book, you might find a description that a nettle is good for cleaning your blood. And then you open another book and you find there nettle is used for sore throat. And now you come to this crossroad and you ask yourself, so where is the truth? Why this book is writing about this and another one is writing about this? It's the same plant. So what you can do is to take her book Physica, look up the nettle, and you will find this description. I write it down in the original text so you can read it. Nettle is very hot in its own way. It's not at all good eaten raw because of its harshness. But when it newly sprouts from the ground, it's good when cooked as food for a human. It purges his stomach and takes mucus away from it. Any kind of nettle does this. So you can see here the difference, what she's talking about. We'll break it down a little bit for you so you do understand. Because she writes nearly about every plant, every tree in this similar way. I will go over the healing foods today. So nettle is very hot in its own way. The first one is the category is very hot. So she defines the energy this plant has. This plant is hot. And she says, as the next thing, it's not at all good eaten raw. So it means you should never eat the nettle raw. But when you cook it, it's going to clean your stomach, but under one conditions, that you collect it in the springtime when it's very small, when it sprouts from the ground, and you can pick it up and you can cook with the nettle. So what you can do in the springtime, just take your scissors, take gloves, please, because even though the sprouts are very small, they are very stingy a lot of times, and just cut the sprouts of the nettle. You can bring the sprouts home and you can make a wonderful soup out of it. You can even mix like the nettle sprouts with broccoli and just mix it completely, because then the harshness is not there. You won't feel since it's young and it's very tender, you won't feel it that way. Also, what you can do if you would like to drink a tea during the year out of nettle. Nettle tea is also good for allergies, as some of the herbalists say. You always collect it in the springtime, okay, and dry it. Or what you can also do, you can freeze the young sprouts in a freezer, and then maybe later on use it in your cuisine if you like. So this is the only difference that differentiates Hildegard from like other herbalists. She talks about the energies of the plant every time, and she defines it in which way it's good for us humans to eat. So, any questions so far? No? It's gonna be difficult. I have to talk about the basics so you do understand when you pick up the book Physica and you start reading, and you will not be lost. So just or I would say an overview. Hildegard is saying that the human body has 4 types of juices. She always calls it a juice. So don't be kind of lost or surprised, okay? They are always too good and too bad. When we have the equilibrium of the juices, we are healthy, okay? Everything is fine. When there is no equilibrium of the juices, then we might get sick. That's the basics. And right now, when you start reading her books and her descriptions, you will find out that she divides the food basically in the following ways based on the impact on our bodies. And she always talks about maybe a neutral, a positive, and also a negative qualities of the food. Not always, but she states the most important is always there for us. And these qualities, I would say, also the healing qualities, you will find in the literature, it's being called subtlety. It's stated in each food type. So you will find the subtlety is basically like the healing quality that is there for us to be picked up. So you will find it, the description in the meat, in fruits, in nuts, legumes, stones, trees, plants, everywhere. It's always the healing that is there for us to be used. So in this case, the subtlety in the nettle and the nettle description would be, but when it newly sprouts from the ground, it's good when cooked as food for a human. And right now, she describes the subtlety. It purges his stomach and takes mucus away from it. This is a very interesting. You also have to understand a little bit a nettle in the cycle that is it sprouts in the springtime, and you know that the nature is kind of cleaning itself naturally in the springtime. So we should do the same as humans. Okay, our ancestors, they did have, I would say, also a fasting period when they started to fast, and they understood that during the springtime you have to fast. Also the animals were fasting, and when the spring started, they started to eat basically the new green grass and etc. And it's also, it goes hands in hand with humans. In the springtime, just go pick up the nettle, very small sprouts, and just use it for a couple of days. What it does, it will clean your stomach. So all the things that you have in there and you kind of acquire during the wintertime, it will help you to clean your body naturally. So that's the positive subtlety written in here. Okay. Yeah, Hildegard is very known for spelt cuisine. So today, since the beginning was so difficult, we will talk about the spelt. So you can get a kind of grasp how she writes and how she talks, and we'll break down the spelt. The spelt is an ancient grain. It has been here for thousands of years, and spelt is very kind of special because when it grows, it's covered 2 times. It has like two layer cover of the seed. So it's not that heavy impacted by the environment. And the thing is, the spelt doesn't bring, I don't know, 1,000 kilos per 1 hectare. So it brings less, and that's why it's not that common that is being, cultivated everywhere and every time. There is also spelt that has never been genetically modified, and this type of spelt is the best for us to eat. So every time you go to the store and you try to buy a spelt, I would look for the organic one, not the regular spelt one, because the regular spelt might be genetically modified. They never write it on the package. So every time I go, I try to buy the best I can afford. If you cannot afford it, just go for the regular spelt. What she writes in her book: the best grain is spelt. It's hot, rich, and powerful. It's milder than other grains. Eating it rectifies the flesh and provides proper blood. It also creates a happy mind and puts joy in the human disposition. In whatever way it's eaten, whether in bread or in other foods, it's good and easy to digest. So what we see at the beginning, she describes the energetics. It's hot, rich, and powerful. It's milder than other grains. And what it does is basically makes our body or our flesh, as she writes there, healthy and provides us a good, proper blood. And the additional that you get is the happy mind and the joy that you get from eating spelt. And it's true, because when I keep eating spelt regularly, I do feel very good, I must say, and I do have a lot of energy and joy. And my husband then makes fun of me that I'm a spelt addict. So there's another one. For anyone who is sick that is unable to eat, take whole grains of spelt and cook them in water, add lard or egg yolk, so he might more willingly eat it on account of the better flavor. Give this to the sick person to eat, and it will heal him inwardly like a good sound unguent. So you already have, like, I went I took the whole description and I put it in here. So I already have a recipe for someone who is sick and who is weak and doesn't want to eat. What you should do is just to cook the whole grains in water. You can add a little bit of lard or just add egg yolk as they are writing, and they should eat it. And it will help him to get stronger. Now we'll just go the quality after quality. And what she writes there, spelled is hot. What does it mean in real life? In real life, this quality means that if someone has poor blood circulation, consuming spelt will bring him relief over time, and one will not have the cold hands, feet state. This works, and I'm like, my body constitution is not the fiery one. Fiery one is my husband, but it really helps me when I keep eating spelt. It does help me not to have this state. So this hot quality is like, she will, in the next session we will talk about some foods that they are like cold in nature, but because spelt is hot, it will always give you energy, but it will not add too much energy to a hot person. Maybe in Chinese medicine there are also categories of people, hot, cold, whatever, but Hildegard doesn't have it. But this is like perfect for everyone, the spelt. The another category is spelt is rich. Spelt is rich in vitamins and minerals that are essential for our nervous system. And these minerals and vitamins help our nervous system to work well. She's very rich in vitamin B, that is really good for our nervous systems, also for kids. For example, my little daughter, when she was the youngest, I have 3 kids, when she was growing up, she never wanted anything else except the spelt porridge. Like the spelt porridge, that was the beginning of the day. I cooked the spelt porridge for her. I took out, we had red currant from the garden and took up some red currant, put on the top. She didn't need any sugar, anything. She was eating it every morning and she was happy. And she's still happy as a child. Since her childhood, she's happy. Is the happiest kid I have. This is the last one. And I must say the spelt really helped her. Also when I was pregnant, I couldn't eat meat. When I was pregnant with her, I couldn't eat meat. I couldn't eat the dairy. It was just not going through, my throat. I couldn't feel it. I was just living off spelt, I must say and admit, and veggies and spelt. And when she was born, my husband told me that's the kid that has the nicest skin that I ever seen, because the first daughter, I was eating the regular diet. The second, my son, I was eating what already half spelled, half regular. And with the last child, I was just eating spelled, and you could see that. You could see the skin of the baby. It was incredible. Spelled is powerful. It brings a good and natural energy to our whole body, but not only to our muscles, but also our ligaments, inner organs, and it supports every body part. And you will notice when you keep eating it regularly that it will just bring a lot of good to your body. You will just feel different. The spelt is just so. What does it mean spelt is milder than other grains? Every time you eat spelt product, no matter if it's made of white or whole grain flour, you will notice a pleasant taste. It has this distinctive, pleasant taste, like a good spelt product. You will always feel like a nutty, like mild, a little bit sweet taste. That's always spelt. Also, when you bake from it, it's a little bit, the baking with spelt is a little bit different than a regular flour, but it always turns out wonderful. What does it mean eating it rectifies the flesh? Spelt has the magic ability to keep your weight at the right point naturally, meaning it provides the right energy to your body in order to function well. So every time you go on a spelt diet, you don't really, it's interesting enough that it's kind of rich, so you don't need to really eat a lot. I always combine spelt with some kind of veggies, and it just fills you up. You don't really need to eat a lot of it. And this is one interesting thing, and provides proper blood. So these days, people do suffer from high blood sugar, cholesterol, and other things. And the first thing when you come to a doctor, he will basically perform a blood analysis. And based on this blood analysis, he will tell you, okay, you are either healthy or you are sick. So it's interesting enough that Hildegard basically puts this quality in the description of spelt, and it's true. I was at my doctor last time, like 4 years ago, and he took my blood, looked it up. He was like, well, you are healthy, you can go home. So, and it's interesting enough that someone like Hildegard wrote this in the 12th century, about spelt. So for me, it's a piece of magic. What does it mean spelt creates happy mind? After eating spelt for a while, you will notice. So it's a really daily intake. After about 7 to 10 days, you will notice basically the difference. After 7 days, you will start noticing the difference, the change in your mind. You will really feel more relaxed and really more happy. It's just since spelt has a lot of vitamin B in a natural form, it will help your neurons. And when you tend to be anxious, or you are very stressed out, it will really calm your nerves down. So I use it sometimes as I would say, my crash remedy when I get a lot of things to do. And she writes, in whatever way it is eaten, whether in bread or in other foods, it's good and easy to digest. So spelt has a universal usage in our kitchen. You can use, she writes, Hildegard, it doesn't matter if you use the white flour, or you use the whole wheat flour, or whole grains or sprouts. Spelt is always good for everyone. There's one thing, there's this gluten issue that some people might have. I was checking with one lady that was working for an institute, and she was studying spelt, and she told me when she looked up the spelt under the microscope, like the solution when you dilute the spelt in water, she said like the gluten that is inside a spelt will dilute in water, But when you take the wheat, it won't, the gluten of the wheat will not dilute in water. And that's why when you're baking cakes with spelt, it will never grow so big. You know, it will always be like the middle size. It will never be like a fluffy, extremely fluffy cake. So this is why, because it doesn't build up basically the net that the wheat gluten can do. And you will see when, you know, the bread rises, the wheat bread rises, and it's very, very big. You know, it creates really nice, big fluffiness. No, spelt will not do this for you. It will be very pleasant in taste. It will have the small little tiny holes, but you will never get really big holes. So this is it for today. So thank you for your attention. And do you have any questions? No, no questions, Diana? No questions. You can turn on your microphone. Susanna?
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask about the specific Physica book you mentioned.
Yeah, it's called Physica.
Physica?
As it
And
was,
it's available in English?
yeah,
Yes.
there's one copy available in English, but actually I don't have them here. I was supposed to bring them. I will bring them the next session tomorrow, and I'll show you these books to you so you can have a look, because there exists, there is an English translation being done by a wonderful lady, but I'm using a German translation since it's bigger. I don't know why. The English one is being translated by Mrs. Priscilla, whatever, and maybe she just took another Latin copy. I don't know, but I will show you tomorrow. So if you don't, you know, if you don't make it to the meeting, I'm recording this, and I'll just, you know, post it on YouTube, and I will send a link to it so you can watch it one more time. But tomorrow when you show up, I will bring the books, and you can have a look at them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Susanna, I have that book in English. So yeah, it's readily available.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in Amazon has it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. But it's certain parts about the plants are not really complete compared to the German version. That's very interesting. I don't know why certain parts are missing there.
Yeah.
I always use the German, I would say, original from the abbey she lived in, because they created a society, or there's a, you know, there are a couple of people being interested in Hildegard. There's still the abbey, and they are devoted to her, and they write books and also print books, but they are all in German, unfortunately.
And in the English translation, there's a few words that they couldn't translate.
Yeah, yeah. They are not.
So
So if you bring up the words, and I will know what they mean it's better in context, then I will explain to you if you are interested in that.
well, I have my book loaned out to a friend, but I have a neighbor who might have it, so I'll have to borrow it from her so I can ask you.
Yeah, great. No problem. No problem. Yeah, there's this word, it's called Gicht. It's a German word. It's basically when the body gets so dirty inside that you're basically, when you get older, and what it does, if you don't clean your body regularly inside, like you don't fast regularly as people used to do, then the plaque will build inside, and it usually, the gift hits like the elbows or all the joints, so you will suffer from it. Some people do, some don't. It's based on the juices inside the body, on the energy that's there. Everybody has a different, you know, setup. Like you might have, like, maybe basically we have different setups, like in the Chinese medicine. Also Chinese describe very similar energetics, but it's not the same as in Hildegard. So it's a kind of interesting stuff, but I didn't want to go into that here because I want to talk about the healing foods. And you should understand, you know, I want to bring you to the point that you do a little bit understand the text when you start reading, that you will not be lost. You know, that's my point of this, I would say, free webinar. that you really get the grasp how she talks about the food and what to do and how to adjust it, you know, what to do in the future so you stay all healthy and happy. Okay,
Very much.
thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening. And if you can, just show up tomorrow. We'll just continue with more food.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks
Ciao.
a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.